Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Take the North podcast. Today is a very special edition of the podcast. I am Mark Grote in downtown Chicago, but our guy, Dan Wiederer, is down in Palm Beach, Florida for the owners meeting where he has already heard from Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles. I've had a chance to listen to every bit of the audio. We will select some cuts, talk about what it means, and tell you the news of the day. But yes, first, let us go to the Sunshine State where we see if you're watching on video, a smiling, polo-wearing, healthy-looking, happy-looking Dan Wiederer. What's up, Weedsy? Good to be back with you, buddy, and I'm glad that you are representing us at the owners' meetings in Florida.
Which is to say, I'm not always usually happy and healthy looking, right, Grote? It's one of those situations where
everybody looks tanned and healthy when they're in Florida. There's a transformation that occurs.
And just for full disclosure, I came to Florida from Arizona, so I've had an extended period of time in the sunshine, and it's probably why my energy and mood is a little bit higher. It's also a little bit higher because it's been a fun time learning about this new Bears team and this new Bears coach. And I got to tell you a couple things. Right out of the gates. I had my first one-on-one time with Ben Johnson on, I guess it was Monday morning, and I was almost embarrassed by how giddy I was to talk to a head coach who was engaged and informative and had sort of that energy that was very infectious. And I think I may have even apologized to him for how excited I was about our conversation, because it just felt like a new start and a revitalizing start for the Bears. And then I'm going to give you a little nugget here, Grote, as I promised before we got recording here. But last night, one of the favorite nights of the year for folks that are allowed to come down to these NFL league meetings is the Monday reception. It's like the best wedding you've ever been to on steroids. It's a great party with great food. And so I'm there eating my crusted grouper and sipping on my vodka tonic and just having some socialization up at the bar with some friends. And at one point I turn around and you've seen how sharp my elbows can be. You've seen them in scrums.
Yeah.
Somebody with these pickup basketball games, anyone that played against me gets caught with one of these elbows. It doesn't feel really good. And I kind of rapidly turned away from the bar and I brushed somebody with my left elbow. And I look up and I say, I'm sorry. It was Serena Williams, Grote. And I like
what?
like I hate to raise you your Doug Kramer grandparents in the elevator thing, but like I elbowed Serena Williams at the bar last night, and I said, I'm sorry. And she said, oh, it's okay. And then she walked away. And it was one of those moments like you're in this room with all these famous people, and you've spent the whole week with all these famous NFL people, and yet like there's this sports icon there, and you're kind of dumbfounded, you're tongue-tied, you're frozen, and you're like, that's like an icon. And it was just a surreal moment there. But that's the highlight of the trip so far.
The only difference between your interaction with Serena and my interaction with the Kramers is that the Kramers knew me. Did Serena know you, Dan?
No, you're right.
No,
Serena did not know me.
No.
And to your credit, you also did not elbow Doug Kramer's grandmother.
Right. They don't call you the Bill Cartwright of the Bears media corps for nothing. That's for sure, man. Dan Wiederer comes in sharp. But you have to. When you've been doing this job for a certain amount of time, you learned how to position yourself. Dan uses the sharp elbows. I just go in front of the cameras. I just place myself so the cameras can see my face at all times, as we've seen in the past episodes.
We both have our little niches here for this podcast on this beat. And so now, like, I guess my goal should be like once or twice a year to elbow someone really famous, and then we'll talk about
it. I love it. Let's get to it, because there's so much to get to at the owners' meetings in Palm Beach, Florida. As I said, Dan out there hobnobbing and getting all sorts of good information from people, and we'll get into some of those juicy nuggets at the end of this podcast. But as I said, both the head coach Ben Johnson and the general manager Ryan Poles were speaking today. We're going to get into all sorts of stuff. We'll talk about what they're thinking. Actually, I will start a little bit before we get into some of the audio, some of the draft talk, because those are some of the first questions that you guys were asking out there, and understandably, because we're coming right up on the draft. I thought it was interesting to hear Ben Johnson first talk about how the coordinators and position coaches are going to be very much involved, and the fact that you guys were wisely asking about some of the day 2 picks. And it feels like the Bears are kind of rubbing their hands together. And they have something very valuable in the first round at number 10, but let's not sleep on the fact that you have a couple of second round picks And if we really want to get into it, like Ben Johnson talked about the running back position and how there's all sorts of different flavors.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that means that don't think about that at number 10. They could outthink it in the middle, in that second round, or in some of the later round picks they have. But what did you kind of think about some of the draft talk that was going on there?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, with draft talk, when April arrives, you always are trying to interpret, like, what is a lie being told to throw you off the scent? What is a truth being told to give people a little bit of misdirection and deception that maybe they are trying to throw you off the step, and you're just trying to figure out what a team is thinking. I do think you did describe it very appropriately with them rubbing their hands together with this 4-pack of picks that they have in the top 75, because while most of us get very fixated on number 10, it's going to be the easiest one to guess on. It's going to be the most fun to talk about. That this group of 4 that they can assemble between the start of the draft on Thursday and the end of round 3 on Friday is going to be an absolutely instrumental core to what Ben Johnson is trying to build. And what that does, Grote, is it gives you options where if you pass on a player and or a position at number 10, you will do so with the knowledge that there's going to be a player at that position available at 39, at 41, at 72. And so how do you put that puzzle together in a way that makes sense for your football team, for the direction you're trying to go? And that's what Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson are trying to do right now. They're trying to establish a plan and a strategy heading into draft weekend where those 4 picks will leave them feeling very good when they go to bed on Friday night. And what I think that does also, Grote, in addition to what they did in March, making the acquisitions that they did, is it just gives you flexibility. And so I think every single player outside of a quarterback is on the table for the Bears at number 10 overall, and they can consider it and they can discuss it and they can figure out what the best path across the finish line is. But you can talk about Ashton Jeanty, you can talk about Tyler Warren, you can talk about Will Kent, you can talk about every single guy on that draft board as a realistic option for the Bears.
Yeah, no, everything is wide open. They've been saying that since free agency, and yet leaves us to speculate, which actually is fun. This is not one of those times where it's annoying and we're stuck speculating. It's kind of fun to speculate when we're talking about the draft. I don't know, maybe I was one of those people that was thrown off the scent a little bit if they are zeroing in on Ashton Jeanty at number 10, which, as you indicated, that wouldn't be crazy for them to think about. But Ben Johnson did say, and listening to his words and the way he said it, he kind of smiled about the running back situation in the class and saying that there's lots of flavors in the first, second, and third round. So, I mean, it's not inconceivable that they would go Jeanty, but that told me that there are all sorts of different ideas as far as the running back class is concerned. Another thing, Dan, is the offensive line. And I thought a good topic of discussion was the Braxton Jones discussion and where he is health-wise. Will the Bears consider the possibility of, as we said, drafting a left tackle? Could that be possible still, despite what they have done on the interior? Dan, let's listen to Ryan Poles talking about Braxton Jones and his health, playing the left tackle, and if they will go for a tackle in the draft.
Yeah, and then you throw, Cron in the mix, who, not only do I still think, highly of him, especially going back and just watching, the Washington game, there's a lot of signs of him being successful, especially the tackle position. But then he also went through a tough spot, which was, the way it was set up was unfortunate. Minnesota wasn't a great outing for him. So, but there's only a very small sample size there. I know that competition is going to, make the best of both those guys. So we're weighing that as well as just who's best available in the draft. So it's all a part of it. It makes it a little complicated when now you're talking about kind of 3 deep in that space. But I think it makes us really ask tough questions when we're watching, specifically like a left tackle. Like, is this guy going to make us better in year 1, year 2, year 3? How do we feel about our guys? Especially in a case where, Dan and Kyle and Declan really haven't had time with either one of their tackles. So there's a lot to work through, but I'm confident that when we sit down and kind of talk through it and look at the guys in this year's draft, and plus we've got to see how it plays out too. There could be, if we have 2-3 guys that we think are in that spot, they may not be there at 10 either. So we'll be ready for all the different situations that can pop up.
So it's possible that Ryan Poles would draft a left tackle, but Dan, at the very least, Karan Amagaji going to push Braxton Jones a little bit at left tackle. I don't know if that's realistic, but it sounds like that's kind of what Ryan Poles is cooking up right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's fluid, right? I think you heard that in Ryan's tone there. And Ben Johnson did tell us at the coaches' breakfast on Tuesday morning that he's not certain that Braxton Jones will be fully healthy for the start of training camp. And so that's a complicating factor there as well that you have to take into account when you're trying to figure out what to do at that position, Grote. And so this will be interesting. I think the question is, right, like, do the Bears have their week 1 starting left tackle on the roster right now on April 1st? And I don't think anyone in the organization would stand up emphatically say, yes, we do. Absolutely. I think their eyes are wide open. They're going to see what's available to them in the draft. And if they don't get exactly what they want in the draft, then they're going to try to make it work with Braxton Jones and Karan Amagaji in the short term and see what they can get out of those guys. And so that's where the developmental piece comes into play. But I would also say that it does feel like their eyes are wide open to exploring what's out there and seeing if they can find something that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I think that we all know how comfortable Ryan Poles has always been with Braxton Johnson. It's his project. It's his 5th-round pick. It was his move to put him in at left tackle when we were all surprised to see that in the Walter Payton Center his rookie year. So obviously Ryan Poles has plenty invested in it, but I don't think he's going to be stubborn. So I think that's good news. I think that's a healthy sound for the Bears offensive line. What they've done with the interior, you're not messing with Darnell Wright at right tackle. You're just not going to do it. But they get it now. Like, even if Ryan Poles loves Braxton Jones, he understands that they can be better at that position.
Well, and the other thing that's crazy, Grote, is you just reflect back a month, like, 30 days ago, we were sitting here being like, what are they going to do on the offensive line? And you do all this stuff in the month of March through trades and free agent signings to make everyone feel a little bit more relaxed and comfortable. And so that urgency and that anxiety is not as high as we imagine it might be on April 1st. And so now that gives them an opportunity to try to figure some things out. And now you got to go through the draft class and talk about it and figure out who are your favorites and are they going to be there and then see where the chips fall.
Let's talk about, and there'll be so much more draft talk on Take the North and with the On the Clock show that I do on The Score, and Dan Wiederer, a regular contributor on 670 The Score, and I'm sure we might circle back to it today. But let's talk about the quarterback a little bit, Dan. Let's talk about Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting, specifically, I believe it was your question to Ben Johnson in regards to metrics and the quarterback, as he told us early in his introductory press conference, I believe it was, how the quarterback is the most important part of the team, most important part of the offense, which Ben Johnson drilled down on. Let's listen to Ben Johnson talk a little bit more specifically about that with a question that you asked.
Talked about how success in the modern NFL is quarterback driven, and that's the driving force of success. What are the most important metrics to you to identify quarterback success? So the way I understand it right now from our analytics team, the EPA in the passing game is really one of the most critical factors in determining wins and losses right now. That's probably changed over the last 5 years or so. I would have said 5 years ago, turnovers, takeaways, that was number one. From what I understand now, that EPA for the passing game has now surpassed that. So whatever team has the higher passing game EPA at the end of the game, they generally win that game. It's over 80% of the time. So it's a huge stat, and that's where we look to how do we help inflate that number, higher completion percentage, more run after catch opportunities. That's not to say we're not going to take our shots down the field and look for big explosive plays, chunks or touchdowns that way, but there's a lot of ways we can get that done.
As an extension of that, when you're trying to see the game through Caleb's eyes and him through yours, in the very earliest stages when the doors open for you guys to spend more time together, what do you focus on first? What are the ways that you guys start to build that?
You go back to the basics, and so it's the fundamentals of the quarterback position. What's our footwork going to look like under center, from the shotgun? What are we calling the formations? What's the defensive identification going to look like? So that we're all speaking the same language. We got to get on the same page because it'll be a little bit different for him than what he experienced last year. And if we can mesh together and start speaking the same language, that's when things will really start to take off.
EPA, expected points added, measures how well the team performs compared to their expectation on a play-by-play basis. And I mean, 80% of the time, So, I mean, that's easy math. But what did you make of that, Dan? What was going on what was your process there with your questioning and the answer that you got there?
Well, look, like as you mentioned, Ben brought up the function of quarterback play as the driving force of success at his introductory press conference. And so finding out where his bullseye is in terms of what you're looking for from quarterback play, what are the most important metrics was fascinating this morning, because now we know, right? We have a direct answer to that. And I said to Ryan Poles in a little side session I had with him this afternoon, I said, look, like the entire Bears beat corps became students of EPA as of 8:25 a.m. Florida time today, right? We're all EPA students now, trying to figure out what that means and how you create it. You heard in Ben's answer there, Grote, the push for a higher completion percentage, which probably means getting the ball out quicker, shorter targets, getting the ball into your playmakers' hands and letting them do the work, and then taking the shots down the field when they present themselves. And so you're looking at a situation where the Bears are going to try to find guys who are really good with the football and can run after the catch and make explosive plays happen that way. And then you've got to create a running game that creates balance in your offense, that creates opportunities for play action, that creates some of these things that boost your EPA. And then if that's able to get going, now all of a sudden you've got a functional offense, you've got a good offense, you've got a unit that can push you towards to winning more football games. And it looked like you were doing some EPA research right now, trying to get established.
Good talking, Dan. Good job.
Yeah. And so for our YouTube audience, sometimes you got to do that, and find ways to create expected points during a podcast. And I think we did a little bit that right there, but I think you can agree that like Ben is very descriptive with how he lays things out for you. And then now we can chase that EPA number for the next at least 10 months anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think that at the essence of this, it's just beautiful to continually hear a head coach who knows everything about the quarterback position, who has done his homework, who has done advanced metrics, who understands the whole part and not just the talking points that you're supposed to know about quarterbacks, the cliches, all the easy things to say. Ben Johnson is going next level with a lot of this stuff. I think another thing that I thought was interesting from Ben Johnson today was when he was asked the question, because we all want to know what's this going to look like with Ben Johnson? What's he going to do to Caleb Williams that Shane Waldron, Matt Eberflus, and that entire coaching staff was not able to do with Caleb Williams? So, Ben Johnson, are there bad habits that you have to undo that Caleb may have accrued last season in a weird year?
Yeah, I don't know if there's any undoing, but there are some things that we're going to encourage that he looks to do a little bit differently. So, he's been predominantly a shotgun quarterback for most of his high school and college career, and so he's very comfortable there. We're going to work to see the comfort level under center and how much of that applies. We had a lot of success where I was last, that going under center for the run game did translate in play action. Whether that works for us in Chicago, time will tell, right? But there's a lot of ways to skin a cat, and that's the beauty about this coaching staff is we have a lot of different influences from a lot of different systems that we'll be able to bring together a good product.
How much do you think with just having someone who speaks the quarterback language, how much can that benefit Caleb as he goes through this process, just even from like the construction of the room to the coaching staff around him?
Yeah, I think you need to be able to see the game as a play caller through the lens of the quarterback and vice versa. He needs to see it through the play caller as well. Why are we calling certain plays with the intent of the play? But for me, everything that I do really is to try to set it up within how he sees the game.
I think Ben Johnson would ideally love to run things similarly to the way he did in Detroit, and I'm sure that's in the back of his mind. I'm sure that's his base, but obviously he has made it very clear that he's going to be flexible about it. Of course, you want to try him under center with the run game to match that up with play action. So I love the way he's talking, and I hope that he continues to commit to and stick to his idea of I got to do whatever makes Caleb Williams comfortable. I can't get enough of hearing that, Dan.
No question. First and foremost, apologies to your cat, Dave, with Ben talking about a lot of different ways to skin the cat. Like,
it bugs me. It hits me every time. It really
slow down,
does.
Ben. Like,
yeah.
This is if you want to be a friend of the podcast, or at least somebody that stays on the good side. You be careful with what you say about the cats out there. Right?
I appreciate that you're getting to know me well too, Dan. Thank you for that. I appreciate you having my back. Thank you.
What I do think you heard in that answer is the declaration that there is going to be an immediate and pretty high stakes experiment with putting Caleb under center and feeling out his comfort there, right? Like that's what Ben wants to do to unlock his offense to the fullest potential. But as you mentioned, he's not going to be stubborn and say, you have to do this if Caleb Williams can't figure it out. I think the sense is that, look, like this is how we are going to be at our most potent. If you're able to master the under center game, if you're able to create a reliable running game by getting under center and creating that, then that's going to open up our opportunities for you in the play action passing game, which is an absolute express ramp towards having the success that Caleb wants to have individually and for the offense as a whole. And so that's going to have to start as soon as they're allowed to start meeting. They're going to have to talk about this. As soon as they're allowed to get out on the practice field, they're going to have to work on that. And I think these next few months are going to be really, really fascinating to see how they are intentional about creating that bond between Ben and Caleb, because as you heard there, like they've got to see the game the same way. And the only way to do that is to get on the same page as quickly as possible. And I think that right now it starts with, hey, let's talk about being an under center quarterback for a while. And let's try to get you in that mindset.
Right. Because we know at the beginning of last season, everybody wanted, including Caleb Williams, to be a pocket quarterback. I think that's part of which is good. That's probably ideally what you want, and then use the escapability and your athleticism when you absolutely have to. Let's see if Ben Johnson wants to try with him to get him to that point, or if it's altered. And those are just things that we don't know right now, but obviously we will track them when they come. Before we get to some, Dan and I kick it back and forth about some of the news out there and some things that maybe you can look forward to. I've got two more cuts. This one right here is Ben Johnson. Everybody's wondering about Jaquan Brisker. He put out another somewhat cryptic Instagram post recently, blaming himself for last year and going to come back better than ever, and like things that you have to kind of. And look, Dan, I think you and I have had the people that we've talked to in the offseason have all said Jaquan Brisker's coming back, including Kyler Gordon. When we spoke to him at the Ed Block Courage Awards, Kyler Gordon was asked about Jaquan Brisker and said, yeah, he's doing great. Let's hear from Ben Johnson on how well Jaquan Brisker is doing, and listen closely to Johnson because he actually gives a full evaluation of Brisker from his Detroit eyes. Listen to this.
Has Jaquan Brisker been cleared?
I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you looking at film when he was healthy? What sort of player do you see?
He is and I'll say this, having competed against him for the last few years, he's a guy that you got to know where he is. Okay, you got to account for him. He likes to play down in the box. He likes to get involved. The one thing I always thought that we could take advantage of competing against him was you could get him to have some bad eyes at times. Okay. And so that's the one thing we'll talk about, just to make sure he's staying sound, he's playing disciplined football. But he's got a great skill set, and I think he's a heck of a football player.
And just to clear it up, Ben Johnson said when asked if he is good to go or activated, Ben Johnson said, I believe so. But Dan, you could clarify. I think Ryan Pohl said yes. He's good to go, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's not still lingering. And what you heard there, Grote, is what we in the business would call volunteered intelligence. We didn't really need to dig for that scouting report on Jaquan Brisker. Ben was willing to offer that up. And I think you and I are both of the kind of ears perk up and say, like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that they've got some areas that they're eager to correct in Jaquan Brisker to take him to the next level? Or is there some concern that, oh yeah, we were taking advantage of his lack of eye discipline for years in Detroit. And so like, just want you guys to know that's a big weakness there. So that'd be interesting to see how Jaquan Brisker, one, comes back, and two, how he quickly acclimates into Dennis Allen's defense, because that's an important position for this defense, and the Bears are going to have to figure out both their short-term and long-term plans there.
Yeah, I kind of thought similar things. I was like, is this just a beautiful opportunity for Jaquan Brisker to improve one of his bugaboos, or do they maybe not like Jaquan Brisker? Is he going to be here? Is all that stuff? But we'll see. I'm looking forward to seeing Jaquan Brisker. Hopefully training camp he'll be full force, and maybe even in the OTAs. We shall see soon. But we do know from both Ben Johnson and Ryan Poles that Jaquan Brisker will be cleared. He has recovered from yet another concussion. We've talked about this a lot. I think everybody's just worried about him as a person, not so much a football player. So hopefully he is back and good to go. Last cut here, Dan, I have, and then we'll talk more, is Ryan Poles. And I believe this is another Wiederer question. But I loved it because it was regarding player accountability and just accountability in general, which seemed to be lacking heavily. So here's Ryan Poles with the question from Weedsy.
And there was so much talk last season and coming out of last season about the accountability piece of things. What does that need to look like going forward, and how will Ben enforce it? It sounds like there's confidence that his ability to get that will be something that he brings to the table.
Yeah, I think it's just being able to call out, the things that aren't up to standard right there in the moment, man to man, and sometimes it's in a group setting. Like, this is how we want it, and you address it immediately. So I think that is something that Ben's going to be really good at. And we'll do that together across kind of all spaces in football. And it's something, we've talked about a lot, and I feel confident that the guys are going to feel that when they get back.
Along with that, you talked about leaders needing to learn how to lead, and you obviously had the 8 captains last year. What are you looking for from that standpoint of things, of teaching guys how to be those forefront leaders? Yeah, the beautiful thing with our setup now, especially, the way the trades and free agency worked out, when you have a guy like Joe in the building, he's done it for a long time. When you have someone like Grady Jarrett, he's done it for a long time. That is an added bonus of bringing those guys in because they can show them how to do it. And I always think it's important that in order to do that and lead, you also have to be taking care of business on the field and still be productive, because I've seen situations where there's older guys who aren't really in their prime, and they're not, they're almost in survival mode, just trying to finish out their career, and it just doesn't hold as much weight. So when there's guys that are actually playing at a high level and they've won a bunch of games and they're addressing certain things, I think it's just weighted heavier, and the guys follow and will listen to that.
Was there not enough weight with Mercedes Lewis at age 40 in that locker room? But no, I understand everything that Ryan Poles is saying right there. You have legitimacy in your leaders, and that had to be. I mean, that starts with Ryan Poles to make sure he's got the right guys running the locker room.
Well, yeah, right, and you put that very, very well there, because there are often apologies and admissions by Ryan Poles of things that didn't go right for the Bears, but it's your job to create that roster. And so if the leadership was lacking last year, that falls on the person that put together the locker room a little bit. You said Mercedes Lewis. I think when Ryan talks about still being able to be productive, as much as Mercedes Lewis's voice resonated, he was just such a bit piece in everything that they were doing last year that I don't think it had the same impact as a guy who's starting every game and making plays and creating success. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with the leadership piece of this. Ben Johnson said on Tuesday morning that he's hoping to have between 3 to 5 captains, that they won't be rotating captains, that they will be season long. These are our guys. Let's follow them. And we'll see who those guys emerge to be. Will they be all newcomers? Will there be some guys that were already in that role last year that continue down that path? But certainly you and I would both agree that the leadership component did not succeed last year. You don't succeed when you lose 10 games in a row. You don't succeed when you just can't pull out of a tailspin after one bad loss and it turns into 2, it turns into 3, turns into 9, turns into 10. You got to find something, right? Like, you've got to find those guys that are able to stop that leak or stop the flood, as the case was last year. And so that's a mission that's going to start again as soon as all these guys gather next week at Haugh. Remember, new coach mini camp, for the Bears will allow this team to gather a little earlier. And you would imagine that would create a little momentum here in the month of April.
News and notes. We talked about Jaquan Brisker a little bit. I'm just looking at the exact quote that I had jotted down with Ryan Poles. Poles said, "I expect him to be himself." And then because he was asked about, do you have to have a good backup plan for Jaquan Brisker because of the injuries? Poles said, quote, "You want depth at any position." So he generalized it. He is behind Jaquan Brisker. He will return to the Bears. Dan, what other news and notes are you getting from Palm Beach, Florida?
Yeah, look, I think we've talked for a few weeks, and you and I were both at the Ed Block Courage Awards in Des Plaines a few weeks ago at a place just like this, the Breakers at Palm Beach. We went to Manzo's in Des Plaines and talked to Kyler Gordon, but I think that extension is on its way. I don't know what the timeline will be, but that certainly seems to be something that all sides are pointing towards. So I would look for that to be almost a foregone conclusion that Kyler Gordon will get a second contract with the Bears. I also wouldn't be surprised, Grote, if TJ Edwards is on the short list for the Bears to try to get extended. I think there's a sense that he's played really well since he came over to this football team, and that he's going to be able to be an impact player in Dennis Allen's defense. So put that on your radar a little bit there as well. I've been sniffing around for a few weeks here about the quarterbacks room, and I've been trying to get a little bit of a sense on how they are going to fortify that room, if at all. I would say coming out of these owners meetings here in Palm Beach, I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears make the choice to carry 3 on the roster.
Carry 3 what? I'm sorry, Dan. I got black
quarterbacks.
3 quarterbacks.
Quarterbacks room.
Gotcha,
And so,
gotcha.
so you're talking about a situation where I would foresee and envision Tyson Bagent remaining your QB2 and your backup in that role, but the Bears going out very soon potentially and seeking a QB3 that can bring that veteran wisdom to the room, that can be that resource for Caleb Williams when his coaches have to go do coach things, and can be a guy that helps further Caleb's growth and development and his understanding of how to approach things in this league to stimulate success. And so have that on your radar as well. I don't know how you feel about carrying 3 for the entire regular season. But
I like it. I actually like it right off the bat, Dan. I mean, a veteran is somebody that needed. I like Tyson Bagent, but Bagent's a classic backup. He's young. He's hungry. He wants to be the starter. I mean, like, he's got his own agenda. So I think you need a third veteran quarterback who is probably not going to have the same agenda and wants to genuinely watch over the 2 young quarterbacks that are in the Bears locker room. So yeah, I love it. I love it.
Look, and it'll be fun to have that. Listen, remember Mark Sanchez came over here on a 1-year deal in 2017 to kind of be that guy for Mitch Trubisky. I don't think he knew it at the time but
he played. That's the problem.
Sanchez never got. I don't think
he
Sanchez
never played
a snap for the Bears. He was with Glennon and Mitch, and
he never took a snap.
He was just there to. I think he played in the preseason, maybe threw a couple touchdown passes to Victor Cruz.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. Maybe I'm thinking of preseason. Why do I have Mark Sanchez
in Chicago? Those August memories tend to carry a little bit more weight than they probably should.
I got to refresh my quarterback. I usually pride myself on that, but boy, there's a little glass there.
Couple other things to take note of. I think there's been a lot of high praise for Dennis Allen, the defensive coordinator, and his ability to be very, very direct with what he envisions for his defense. Ryan Poles made it very, very clear that speed is going to be something that DA leans into and prioritizes. So that may impact the way the Bears approach the draft. Beyond that, I think you're getting a lot of praise as well for Eric Bieniemy. And Ben Johnson said at the coaches' breakfast on Tuesday morning, he's going to coach the piss out of the running backs. And then he's going to be a guy that is felt on the practice field, him and Antoine Randall and Al Harris as those tone-setting coaches on the practice field that establish that standard. I think Eric Bieniemy's addition to the staff is really intriguing. And I think he's going to be a guy that we're going to really enjoy getting to know and then enjoy getting to watch as he kind of leads things on the practice field.
And I guess we owe thanks to Ted Cruz for getting Eric Bieniemy here because he got the shout out
there, right? Yeah. Helped recruit him to Chicago. So you never know where those connections will pay off. I'm going to give a small tease here in regards to a little side conversation I had with Ryan Poles this afternoon, and it's something that I think we can revisit next week here on Take the North with some pretty good introspection and honest answers, both about his connection with Ben Johnson and why it's been so energizing for him, as well as kind of that union between Caleb and Ben and what has to happen in the short term. So that's going to be fun because I think those are some important storylines here in the spring as those relationships build, and we'll have a lot of opportunity and some of Ryan's words to go through and listen to him. And so that's just my little tease out here.
Great work out there, man.
Florida.
And just one other thing, just to make it clear and neat for everybody, as far as Braxton Jones is concerned, Ryan Poles says he's right on track, but probably limited in camp. So don't expect Braxton Jones to be totally and completely healthy until about then. And Dan, there seems to be lots of activity going on around you right now. I just saw some guy behind you, so this might be a good time to end the podcast. Any final thoughts there from sunny Palm Beach, Florida? I'm sorry, Dan, you're just glowing. You look good, man. I like the choice, the light green shirt. The hair looks good. The eyes are popping. I love it all, Dan.
Sudden frantic activity here, but yeah, I was trying to seek an outdoor filming location where maybe the ocean was in the background, maybe the palm trees, just something to really make you and Studs jealous right now. I couldn't find a plug and I couldn't find a place where the lighting would be good enough to do that. So here I am.
That's hell.
In the hallway, and they're disassembling some of these rooms here that are done for the week, and so there's a little bit of construction work going on. And
will you be doing anything? Because I know how these trips are. Everybody usually goes out to dinner. Will you be going out for dinner tonight? tonight? Will you go take a swim in the Atlantic? What is your plan for tonight, Dan? Or is it all work? Maybe
there's no
work.
swim planned. I do have to finish some work, and then I have to figure out what's on the agenda for tonight. Nothing specific tonight. We've had some good nights the past couple nights, and we'll progress on that end. And we will get to hear from George McCaskey and Kevin Warren on Wednesday morning.
Oh, good.
We're going to circle back, you and I, and we're going to have a lot more to break down. I've got 2 notebooks here, Grote, or 2 notebook pages here filled with things that we can talk about. We've got enough content to get us to draft week, so we're home free at this point.
If George is going to be on, will his new historian Mark Potash be joining us as well? That he freaking I was having my first cup of coffee when my program director Mitch Rosen sent me a text by Potsy announcing that he was going to be a historian for the Chicago Bears and thanking George Halas. And then, it's April 1st. It's April Fool's Day. Mark Potash is not going to be a Bears historian.
I want to let you in on a little secret, and maybe I'm crossing the line by doing so, but this is a years old process for Potsy. He has been sending I got to find the right thread here. It's called Tweets I Could Not Send, and he's been sending this in a thread to Rich Campbell and I since Rich Campbell and I were on the beat together.
Oh man!
So Potsy will. I mean, look, you could go through my thread here and
that's
find
hilarious.
Stuff. And Rich and I are always needling them, saying, send that one. And this one, I said, I think this is a good one to send. And he said, it might be a little risky. And then he sent it. And then he got the reaction that you saw there's no better sport than watching Potsy throw a line in the water with a shiny lure on it. And when people bite the hook, it's just, it's like watching Babe Winkleman on Saturday morning, right? Just let him go to work with the reel and see what he pulls into the boat. I mean, it is awesome to watch. I know he feels, a little odd about this one because so many people took him seriously, but hey, that's how the game works, right? Don't hate the player, hate the game.
That's hilarious. Couple things here before we get out of here. We want to remind people that we will be doing, and I don't know if this is unprecedented or if you guys have done this before. When Haugh was here, we were doing a live episode of Take the North on April 17th. And
in the studio, right?
Yeah, in the studio. I guess we're doing it in the performance studio at the Score, which is where we have had all sorts of rock bands come through the years because of our FM stations. I saw Perry Farrell and Porno for Pirates, of course, the lead singer of Jane's Addiction. I mean, there's been plenty of big time celebs that have come through there, so it's a pretty cool place. So here are the deets. We will be doing live Take the North show from 6 to 7 on 670 The Score, broadcasting live specifically from the Blue Cross Blue Shield performance stage. If you would like to be a part of the live studio audience, and we want you there. If you want to be at that show, just go to 670thescore.com/contests to enter for your chance and your way in. So again, live studio audience, Take the North, April 17th, 670thescore.com/contest. We hope to see you there.
Just to bring it full circle, you know who I'm going to invite to that live performance event, don't you?
Potsy.
Serena Williams. We're going to send out an invite and see if she shows up at the Blue Cross Blue Shield performance
she's
stage.
Not turned off by your shove. I mean, you see one of the greatest tennis players ever, and you just push her out of the way. Jesus.
I apologize so kindly. It was quite a moment.
Yeah. Studs, is that it, man? Is there anything else that you needed us to discuss, or are we all good here, buddy boy? Because I know that you said you had some notes or something like that.
No, we're all good. After we're done, I got some stuff.
Oh, that's after we're done. You got to make that clear, Studs. Jesus. All right. Thanks to everybody for listening to the podcast. Thank you to Dan Wiederer, who is in Palm Beach, Florida. He will be there this week, continuing through the owners meetings, and we'll continue to get his insight out there here on Take the North. So for Dan Wiederer, for Adam Studzinski, I am Mark Grote. Thank you for watching Take the North. Thank you for listening to Take the North. We'll talk to you later.
Great talk. See you out there.